Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. It is January 1st. Welcome to 2024 and a happy new year from everyone at the podcast. What are you going to achieve in 2024? Have you got a resolution? Have you got a goal? Is there anything you are making an improvement on? Are you looking for those 1% gains, or are you going to go for something brand new? Over the course of January, we are doing a series of podcasts around health, well-being, fitness, longevity, sleep, everything that is going to make you fitter, stronger, happier, healthier, a better version of yourself, hopefully. And we're kicking it off with our guest today, John Gregory from the British Firefighter Challenge, because today, the British Firefighter Challenge launches their registration for 2024 event. Now, the British Firefighter Challenge started back in 2016. This year, the event will be in Liverpool, Pierhead, underneath the iconic Liverpool building on Saturday, the 27th and 28th of July. It's going to be an incredible event, and today I'm going to speak to John about preparing for it, about the evolution of the British Firefighter Challenge, the start of the Welsh and the Cheshire Fire Challenge, and why this is a great thing to have yourself geared up for in 2024. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to joining you for the rest of the year. A final ask from us on the podcast as we start this brand new year. If you want to stay up to date with us for the rest of the year, if you want to get the first listen to all the guests, please make sure you firstly are subscribed on whatever platform you listen to. Please rate or follow the podcast wherever you're listening, whether that's Spotify or any other platform, and also on our YouTube platform. And if you want to support the podcast, if you want to get access to all of our documents and all of our episodes, because if you look down the list of episodes, you'll notice that not all of them are there. You can't go all the way back to episode 1 because it has been archived. All of these episodes are now on our Patreon page, which for just £3 a month, you can get access to all the episodes first, you can listen to all the archive episodes, and you can get access to every single piece of documentation, information, study, and debrief that gets sent into the podcast. You can find the link for that on our website. You can find the link for that in these notes. That is Patreon for the Firefighters podcast, and it will give you everything you want to know. You can be on our Inside Watch team. So without further ado, let's kick it off with our first episode of the year with John Gregory from the British Firefighter Challenge. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. For people that have never ever been to an event like this, if you had to do it in an elevator pitch, what is the BFC? What is Firefighter Fitness Challenges?
So it's a head-to-head race, 2 firefighters, stair running, hauling, dragging kit, smashing a hammer, rescuing a casualty. So it's all the things that you would love to do in the first 3 minutes of an incident to get that medal, to be that hero.
Why do you think it's grown so much? Because you guys, I was looking back, and in fact, just before we came on, we were speaking about it. 2016. This is like going to be this will be the 8th year. So this episode's coming out January 1st, 2024. This will be the 8th year you've done it. That's a hell of a long time. You've grown up. Everyone's grown up. The whole team. It's not just you behind the BFC. Why did you guys want to start doing it? Because we've got to remember, and I always say to the guests, like, we've got to get over ourselves and remember that so many people are coming into the services now and know nothing about any of this sort of stuff. So people might be hearing about this for the first time. What made you guys want to start doing the UK model of it?
Yeah, it's been going long enough that Mickey retires next year.
No way!
That's how long we've been going.
Jesus.
Yeah, so talking to Mickey was one of the first guys from the squad, if you like, to get out into Europe and try these events. So he got an invitation to go out into Europe. And then the first time I came across Firefighter Challenge.
So for people that don't know, this is Mickey Joseph, isn't it? Mickey's Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue and one of the original members. There's a whole team behind it. But
Yeah, so the team at the moment is currently myself, Michael Joseph, Rob Budge, and Christopher Trendrich. So Chris is at Notts, Rob and Mickey are both at Hearts. And the first year, the founding year for Nottingham in 2016, we had also MBE Kev Ruan as well, aka the Godfather. So he was inspirational, to be fair. So he was one of the first people that went out to these firefighter challenges. He went all the way over to Sydney. He was part of the what year was it, 2009 Liverpool World Games as well. So he had been a part of a lot of events over the years himself as a firefighter. And then he bumped into Michael Joseph and Rob Budge, who were also at a European event. And he also knew through Notts Fire Service Christopher Trendrich. So between these guys that have been out of these European events, I then went to off my own back to the Belfast 2013 World Police and Fire Games, and it was just insane. It was eye-opening. You got these firefighters from all across the world, of all different shapes and sizes, and it was competitive, but it was also about the morale, the camaraderie of getting people together of different languages, but you speak the universal language in the fire service, and we wanted a little bit of that in the UK. So yeah, we all bumped into each other. Most of us bumped into each other in Belfast, and that was kind of where this idea of Team GB and bringing the best of the British across to these European events was born. And then I met Kev in Hanover, and that was 2015. And from there, that was it. The idea of let's get it in the UK was born. And Kev was a big part of that in the first year. And then he stepped back and let the four of us continue it ever since.
In other news, this episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the centre of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. You can view battery life, air pressure and estimated time remaining either independently on the M1 itself or from the Luna connected device screen. Also, still with the air status, alarm information, search status, and all of this provided to the incident command for confident decision making during the scene. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. One of the key parts of the Luna is their FAST system, the Firefighting Assisting Search Technology. This combines directional and distance information with thermal imaging to help find separated teammates and decrease response time. It actually connects you to the other crews in the vicinity for a unified search during the time of mutual aid by instantly notifying the network of Luna devices when there is a downed crew member, allowing for a prompt search and rescue. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. It enables you to see the exact location of your firefighters on the scene. And it doesn't require you to be sat on the station. The MSA Hub then provides a wireless gateway straight to the cloud, enabling wireless on-scene data for local and remote incident command for additional eyes on the scene. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity. MSA is dedicated to increasing safety in the fire service through technological advancements. Various feature enhancements, new products, partnerships, and integrations will provide additional capabilities readily accessible by products, software, and services in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show. What gave you guys the audacity to think that there would be enough of an appetite for it in the UK? Because look, connecting the dots looking backwards, everything looks obvious. Everyone goes, oh yeah, well of course. I mean, look how successful it is, look how many years it's been going. Obviously, everyone wants to do it. But actually, it takes a real audacious punt to go, no, I think there's enough people would want to do this, because everyone might say, I'm up for something like that. But then to put yourself out there, put on a massive event, do all the organising, was there a fear that no one's going to show up? Was there a fear that, are we being, too elitist to think that firefighters should want to be as fit as they possibly can?
Yeah, I think, in the first year it took us the full 12 months of planning to get 70 people registered. Just 70.
Wow.
Of which about 50 actually showed up. So we're not talking big numbers, and that was in a car park.
Mm.
Now the entries sell out this year in Manchester. It was sold out in 3 days. So that's 300 places in 3 days. And so the appetite's definitely there. It's grown every year. And that's from all age ranges and both male and female as well. I mean, talk about females, there was 3 females in the first year. So they turned up knowing that they'd nailed on a gold, silver, or bronze medal. Like I say, now, with 20% of the entries, you know what I mean? It's like we got 60, 65 entries from females this year. And like I say, it's a real competition.
Out of how many total competitors is that, sorry? 300, you say?
Out of 300. So, yeah, over 20% of our entries are female, which is
isn't it so ridiculous and almost like not sad, but like hypocritical, something like, because I love this. I've been doing it with you guys for years and years. Nowhere near do I put in the organisation, the commitment that you guys do, but I support it. I come, host it, doing all the training, all that sort of jazz. But so many people say that it's a bit elitist, and they say that it's not necessarily representative of the day-to-day firefighter. But with the greatest of respect, if UK Fire and Rescue Services, brigades, and all that sort of stuff could replicate the success in diversity, inclusivity, peer-to-peer support that competitions like the BFC do, then the entire, I'm not pretending we're experts in anything, but if they could just have the the humility to learn from what you guys and girls are doing and how you're going about, including everyone, promoting it, creating a safe environment, everyone supporting each other, I feel like we'd be in such a better place.
Yeah, definitely. It's a platform to show that you can do it. And I think it gets rid of the bias and the stereotypes of what a firefighter should be, what person you expect to turn up. And actually, like I say, we have people of all shapes and sizes that turn up to the British Firefighter Challenge, and the ones that you think will smash it don't, and the ones that you really don't expect to smash it do really well. And it's just the fact that people can turn up, like I say, whether you're 18 years old or whether some guys are retired and they're in their mid-60s, and they're still turning up to prove that even though they're mid-60s, they can still do what an 18-year-old or 20-year-old is doing. So I think it's the opportunity to be competitive, but it's also for a lot of people the opportunity to demonstrate that they still have those abilities.
I think there's an aspect as well where it's an opportunity for us to celebrate each other. I love the family side of it as well. I mean, I was just looking on the website again. Is that Hallie that you're holding in that photo? Yeah,
that was Bury St Edmunds.
How long ago is this? Man, that really is a capture of time, isn't it? Jesus.
Funny enough, that event I had to create a folder because I genuinely wasn't sure if Hallie was going to be born on the BFC. So I had to create like a contingency plan for what happens if I'm not there. Cause
yeah. Because so much of it, when it's such a small team, is in your head, isn't it? Like Mickey knows how to put the tower up, and Rob, Nato, and Chris, everyone's got their own thing. But no, when I was looking at that, the family aspect where people's husbands, wives, and can show up, children, family members, and clap and support and show the appreciation for what this person spends. Because I think we're terrible at selling the British Fire Service, and what I mean by that is I feel like it's the best kept secret, the emergency services, but we're so scared of committing professional suicide that we struggle to shout and scream about all the great things. You look in the press and people are quick to say the bad things that are going on in cultures and all that sort of jazz, but it's a very small part, isn't it? And what often is the generic things that happen in services is incredible people doing the best they can with a great moral compass, and for their families to be able to come and support them at an event like this is one of the really unique things that I've found about the BFC, and also the Welsh and the Cheshire and the people that are following you and the team of trailblazers that put stuff like this on.
I think the thing that captures it for me is for the fire service is that you can speak to, and you'll know this through podcast, you can pick up a conversation with someone that is literally the other side of the world, and they have the respect and the same moral compass, the family, the kind of like the fire station, the whole kind of lifestyle that you have. You have that shared, those shared thoughts and those shared skill sets. So I think the biggest thing for me is, and this is where the Firefighter Challenges came from, but it started as a fitness test and it just got competitive. And like you say about the fire service now, that people are scared to be competitive because they're not sure what they can and can't do on a fire station. And what I love is that we're starting to get
why is that? Just zoom in on that for me. Why? Because I'm competitive. I think healthy competitiveness, healthy pride, healthy ego. Jesus Christ, why should we not cheer for each other? Why should you not be proud of what we do? There's this self-deprecating thing we have in the UK, I think. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, no. And I'm like, fuck that. Just be proud of yourself. Be proud of each other. I love screaming and shouting about you and the team whenever I go places and introducing the BFC and others to new partners, because we should be proud of what we do,
And do you know what, actually, like, I know I'm not the best person to talk about this. I've fallen over tyres trying to flip them and injured myself and all sorts. So that's where it comes to, and that's where the fire service does go, right, what's the repercussion of you putting this on? But actually,
I know.
When you really look at it, and you look at how football and rugby and all these sports are on the decline, and all the injuries, you think about it when you're getting into your 40s, 50s, how easy it is to have a hamstring tear and all those injuries. The actual amount of injuries in Firefighter Challenge is very, very low. So the training is specific to the job you do, and the amount of injuries that happen because of the type of training or because of the events, again, is really low. So we're doing something right, and like I say, with the numbers growing, and the fact that it popularises the fire service again, it is cool. Like,
I think it's such an incredible recruitment tool. And I know you guys, I don't know if you do or don't struggle with getting partners on board, but this year it's at Merseyside. They're hosting, aren't they, for 2024? I would ask that services should be snapping your goddamn hand off. And again, because we've seen the Welsh and the Cheshire crop up, there's clearly other services that are interested in finding positive ways to exhibit this. And also, it would be remiss if we didn't say that, Chrissy and the team as well, as representatives of the BFC and myself included, are going to be doing it at the Women in the Fire Service as well. So other respected organisations are clearly seeing the tremendous value that something like this has.
Yeah, and it's just getting into that. I think the next few years will be interesting because we are endorsed by the NFCC and the Firefit Steering Group, and like you say, we're helping, and we've got Chrissy as an ambassador for the Women in the Fire Service. So we're making the right footsteps. It's just getting it right because we are a fire service. So it's about making sure that the money that comes in from the corporate sponsors covers all the costs, because we wouldn't ever want to and we don't want to put any financial burden onto a fire service and to the UK taxpayer. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right. We want to make sure that we're raising money for the Firefighters charity as well. So that's where we've got to make sure it's all signed and sealed so that the fire services sign up to it. And I don't think it always has to be. We've gone bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where, like, Manchester was brilliant this year, and Liverpool will be fantastic next year, because I'm sure we'll talk about it later.
Manchester was incredible.
We're doubling up with Pride next year as well, so the atmosphere is going to be insane. Man. But I think we've spoken about that. I think we might look at, in future years, going back to a Bury St Edmunds, somewhere a little bit more smaller scale, kind of just rein it back in again and have a little sort of town feel again, and smaller, more intimate setting, if you know what I mean, because we've gone big city centre recently.
It's hard to square that circle, because when you said there, like, want to make sure we're doing it right, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a trailblazer, when you're doing something that hasn't been done before, there's no real template to follow. So, like, we could see on the website stuff, it does say exactly what you're saying. Partnered with the NFCC, partnered with the Firefit Steering Group. What's your guys and girls kind of calibration and compass to say, like, what direction do we want to take this in? Because you've got, like, the sponsors you've got as well. There's the Hainsworth, you've got SFJ Awards, you've got MSA, Willingwood Watches, Gym Gear, Crofton, Gore-Tex. There's so much responsibility. And you guys don't get paid for this as well. This would be an important point to raise, is that you're not like starting up a Hyrox company and making a load of money. You guys and girls are still doing the day-to-day job. So how do you know what good looks like and feels like when there's no real comparison in the UK for you guys to measure against?
Good question.
It's the impossible, isn't it? Because you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. You're never going to please everybody. But you also can't be beholden to people that don't really know what they're on about, because no one else has tried to do this before. There's a reason services can't do it themselves, because they're so busy, they're under-resourced, and you've got to be a little bit brave and audacious to put yourself out there to do stuff like this. Today's podcast is powered by our partner Lifelines and their revolutionary approach to functional hydration. Just like in firefighting, water is essential for body function, but studies show more than 80% of firefighters are dehydrated. A 25-year study findings from the National Institute of Health showed poor hydration to be linked to early aging and chronic disease, and even mild dehydration results in significant negative impact outcomes, including headaches, exhaustion, rapid pulse, irritability, and poor cognitive function. A study conducted by Yale University showed that participants who were just 1% dehydrated had a 12% increase in errors when performing tasks that required cognitive flexibility. In addition, dehydration is shown to worsen mood and attitude, contribute to confusion and poor decision making, and negatively affect memory and judgment. In other words, you really don't want your incident commander, firefighter, or for that matter any first responder on a critical scene to be even slightly dehydrated. Mild dehydration occurs when a person is just 1.5% dehydrated, a condition that does not even trigger the thirst response in most people. So just imagine how quickly a firefighter or any first responder can and does become dehydrated in their day-to-day duties, which is why I address my hydration first thing every day with Lifelines. Go into the notes for this episode and specifically check out Lifelines Hydro Fuel and Hydro OG by clicking in the notes for the podcast for a clean energy solution designed for those who demand more from their day. Now back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, if you look around the world, I know the Firefighter Combat Challenge model is highly sponsored and raises a lot of money, but it's also very expensive to enter. We've always had the model of what's good for us is that it only costs £30 for a competitor to enter. So it's not 100 and something pound like High Rocks or all these different events that are popping up now, Wadland and events that are just the great events. Doing the Ironman last year, fantastic, but you can't do many of them. It's expensive. So we've always had the template to say, look, we want as many people to enter as possible, and we'll keep it as reasonable as possible at £30, and we'll try and put the costs onto the corporate sponsors. We've now got to the point where we're maxed out our event. So I suppose our template for what looks good is that we're trying to work with like Cheshire, who started up a regional challenge with Mid and West Wales. I know Cleveland are interested. There's counties on the South Coast interested that we'd love to hopefully set up more of these little regional events and in the future have more people entering, and then the BFC ultimately be the pinnacle and the nationals every year. So yeah, we just want to get more and more people involved, and it's more about if we can get people buying the equipment again at no cost and making sure they've got the kit. The legacy is that people enter, that they come together, that they raise money for charity, and that they bring the family, like you said about earlier. And we have these open days, and we just get together on a more regular basis, because that's the thing we miss. Even organisers, like how often me, Mickey, Budge, and Chris get together. It's not that often, so we need these events to get together and have those experiences. So that's what I suppose we know. An event is good when everybody turns around and says, "That was brilliant," and that's it. That's all we need.
What's the recognition and support like from your guys and girls services? And again, we're not going to speak about specific services, but you know, this would almost grow into a role within itself. But because unless you move into the NFCC and become a lead for Firefit or something like that, you don't want to become the busy fool, and it's a heavy cognitive lift and responsibility to do all of this in your private time. You've got a growing family and stuff like this. You compete every year. How do you prioritize your time? Because it's something you and I talk about privately all the time. It's just trying to work smarter, not harder, and still try and move some of these big chess pieces that you've got going on in your life.
I'll start by saying Charlotte is very patient with me.
So Charlotte, your beautiful wife, who is absolute smoke show, way better than you, and clearly the genes for the kids have gone from her because they've got that beautiful skin as well. She's a big part of the patience, is she?
Yeah, I think, like you said earlier, we do volunteer our time, and it can be frustrating. I think I say to you yesterday, I was on the phone to one of the banks for about 6 hours. Like I was just like, oh, you just don't need that. And it's like I say, you're not getting paid for it. And it's the stuff that no one sees behind. They turn up and they see the event, and it's the hours of graft during the year that is tough. I suppose the support for the services is. We're setting a foundation, so the future is that we will be part of the Fire Sport UK. We'll have a national section and a national setup represented by people from across the country, and that will allow us to, along with the regionals, we can start getting more people involved. We can send teams out to the European competitions and really represent Great Britain. And the fire services, because we will be part of the Fire Sport UK, will start giving us that sport leave, and they will see that.
How come you're not already? So for people that are familiar, we'll put a link to Fire Sport UK, and I've got their website up here. It's home of the fire service sport, and they've got within there angling, athletics, badminton, bowls, clay target shooting, cricket, cycling, football, blah, blah, blah. All the traditional stuff that you would expect. And I remember, and you'll know this as well, a lot of services have always been massive into the golf trips. The amount of money they seem to pour into these golf trips. And PBI used to sponsor a load of big golf events around the UK. I don't know if they still do. Why is it taking so long for them to recognise and appreciate this as a recognised sport and a recognised event?
We are getting there. I think it's been the participation. I think they can't sort of overlook it now. The numbers of people wanting to get involved, and like you say about golf. I mean, the beauty of golf is you can play it from when you enter the fire service until well after you've retired, and that's kind of one of the better things about the Firefighter Challenge is that you don't get in team sports or other events, that you can do this literally from 18, and we've got people in the mid-60s. So it's definitely something that is very diverse and something that's very open to everybody to complete. So,
and I get that they encourage health and well-being and stuff like that, but when you see clay target shooting on their Fest UK, I'm like, what's the correlation? What's the passover from this to the actual job? How's it helping people? I don't think you have to be terribly fit to do clay target shooting. And again, I get that there's a social and well-being aspect to all of this as well, but the connections for something like the BFC would just be so blindingly obvious for me. Of course, I would say that I've got a bias, but
yeah, I know a few people in the shooting section, and it's definitely the numbers are growing in the shooting again, and I think I definitely see the social aspect, that there's not as many socials in the fire service as much anymore. So some of these elements are definitely growing, and it's not just the British Firefighter Challenge. It is the events like shooting and golf that are very much about getting people together. I just definitely think, as an advocate of the Firefighter Challenge, that we tick a lot of boxes in terms of physical health, mental health, getting people together, literally everything that the fire service needs. And we put up a massive open day, like you talk about the recruitment stalls, the EDI, everything that we put into an open day. We've even got a little junior firefighter challenge so kids can get involved in it. So, yeah, I mean, I'll keep knocking on doors, mate. You know me, because I can't see this going away anytime soon.
Well, Chris, I think, is on my list. So Chris Lothar is the chair of Fire Service. I didn't know he was the chair of the Fire Service UK, to be fair, because he's chief of Tyne and Wear at the minute. Really nice bloke. Seems super fit. I know he's big into his training and stuff like that, so I might tug on his chain when we next have the conversation about it, because it'd be an interesting thing to hear his thoughts on it. I'm sure he'd say it's a no-brainer, but it's just getting it over the line, and like you're saying, all that logistical stuff and paperwork stuff and doing it properly. And that's something we do suffer from in the fire service, to be fair, in making sure we do things properly and do things as they should be done, because otherwise they end up falling on their face. You said last year we were in Manchester. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful location. Massive, big square, that gorgeous big glass building that we had behind us. You guys are always trying to learn and pivot and adapt and look for those 1% marginal gains every year. What were some of the reflections on the sort of festival feel that we had at Manchester?
Yeah, you just literally put it into words there about it being a festival feel. I thought Manchester was brilliant, that it was a city centre, but we managed to pack it into this, to the Cathedral Gardens, which was a much smaller venue than usual. So it was a logistical nightmare trying to get everything in. I'm sure Mickey manages to always keep his calm and his cool, but even he would have said that was a little bit tight getting the tower in. But the benefits, It was fantastic. We kept everyone together this year. We had food, there was pizza, there was tea, coffee, there was a bar, so you could have a beer. It just meant that we kept everybody together for the whole event. And I mean, you could see from the videos and when you were doing your comparing, the place was rocking. The amount of people that we kept around the course, we created like an arena. And that's definitely something that we need to take forward and try and keep creating that arena, because that is, for a competitor.
It also creates like a bit of a safe space for everyone as well. As much as the public are all great, lovely people, as vast majority of them are, this is a gathering of first responders, which is has its pros and its cons depending on how the public feel about first responders. And the unique thing about this was people could just, pop a spot on the grass, sit down with the family, the kids, the dogs, still be part of the environment, get access to a lot of the partners and the sponsors and the drink and the food. And it felt really safe, if that makes sense, which it shouldn't need to. If everyone should feel safe, of course, but it was like, I don't know, I felt really safe, which is important. I wasn't like worried where my bag was or worried about anything like that, which I always think is something unique about these events.
I think that's it. I think like previous years it's been fairly open, like you could walk down the high street and find the event, as opposed to this was, although it wasn't a ticketed event, we did have the fencing up and the entry points so that it was a secure perimeter. So like you say, I think, I do get that. There's much more family kind of orientated space that they could relax a lot more in, and that probably was a big part of it. And the same for the sponsors, they've got all their equipment and they want to showcase their products. It was great because they could leave their stuff on site and feel confident that the whole area was secure. So definitely security and that side of things has gone up as well, which just adds to the the complexity of it all.
I wanted to shrink down to some of the personal for a while, because there'll be people hearing about this and hearing how to get involved. You have won something almost every single year, I think, at the BFC and other competitions around the world, but you're getting older. You look horrific. Not as bad as me, but you've not taken anywhere near as many drugs, if any at all, so you would look better than me. How's your training changed over the years? If you're happy sort of sharing your kind of age, because you're not a baby anymore, and in fact you do have babies of yourself. How has your training kind of changed? Because you said about you've done triathlons and stuff this year, some of the strength and endurance stuff is all chopped around.
Yeah, I'm 36. I might look a little bit older. Some people are going to go liar. I used to play football, so that always kept me cardiovascularly fit. And where, I'll be honest, I struggled was when you look at some of the other guys in our British team, the Jack Baker, the Dave Budge, that they all had speed on their side and strength. They could lift a lot more weight than me, and that's where they accelerate up the tower. So I've always struggled with the power aspect of the BFC. So I'd definitely say over the last few years I've tried to work on strength a lot more, until last year where I decided I'd go completely opposite direction and do a half Ironman, which so you go from the complete extreme of weights, and then from a 3-minute 2-minute challenge that we do to deciding to do like a 6-hour event. It was hideous. But
you've got the whole PT background and everything, though. I know you're a devil for the detail, so you like getting into the complexities of the skills and the form, and dialing in on those sides of things. I mean, just from sort of a sort of holistic view of strength and stuff in the fire service, how vital do you think it is? Because obviously it's a big challenge for some of the females getting into the job. You certainly don't need to be a meathead like myself or maybe Jack a little bit as well. But where do you think the balance lies? Because something that's quite unique about the BFC is you do use more representative aspects, I think, of the community. And I'm saying that like the casualties as an example and the weights that we're asked to move. I feel embarrassed when I look at some of the entry selection tests for services across the UK, because I think you're setting people up to fail with the things we're asking them to do and how unrealistic that is of the job. Where do you think strength requirements sits for firefighters?
I'd say it's definitely, especially at the BFC, is that there's a lot of skill sets in there, isn't there? So, I mean, everyone can run up a flight of stairs, but the hauling side is, although it's only a 15 kilo pack, it's amazing how many people struggle. But once you put the time aside to learn those skills, it does become a lot easier. But also, you'll see from the ones that are prepared the difference it makes. And that doesn't mean that someone who is male or female is any different. I think it's the ones that prepare that you can tell who is prepared and put the time aside. So, I mean, I've been at a few CrossFit gyms, and you see women there who've just nailed down a technique to climb a rope, or that can kip all day long and do pull up after pull up. And I'm like, well, I should be technically stronger, but they're just technically better in every aspect of me. So they're kicking my ass. So that's where the fire service is at, in my opinion. And it's not about brute strength and size. It's about getting that right balance of the fitness, but with the skills. And that's where I think the BFC has got a nice little niche with the Firefighter Challenge circuit.
How did you find training for the triathlon? How did you need to switch things up for that? What was your kind of training block?
That was just pure mileage, I'll be honest. That is just, you've just got to get out.
That's why that stuff admires so much. I think it's so hard. I remember Ricky Lightfoot, we've had him on the podcast before, and he's won many ultramarathons all over the world. He's a Scottish firefighter, and he's putting in like 100 miles a week. I'm like, fucking hell, mate. Just the time that shit takes.
I mean, that's why I went for a half, because that's a 6-hour event. You go to a full Ironman and you're up 12 to 14 hours. You've got to put the serious time and effort in, and that's probably the hardest bit. And that's where you're asking me earlier about the changes I've made personally, is that as a PT, I used to train loads. Used to train my clients, I train myself, I play football. So 2 to 3 sessions a day wasn't uncommon. It was like a done thing. Now it's about training smarter, because I don't, with the kids and with family, I certainly don't have as much of that free time. So training like this morning, first thing in the morning, getting up early, that's always the tough one. Training smarter is definitely the key, and that's where I believe in. I put a lot of time in here for the Firefighter Challenges doing the skills. So I'll get from springtime, I'll get the fire kit on, we'll get to an external set of stairs, and we will start hauling, we'll start hitting the hammer, we'll start getting up and down the stairs in fire kit, and we'll do the specifics for the event, knowing that that's probably where the biggest gains will come from.
How do you balance that as a family? Because there's a lot of people our kind of age, people won't believe you're actually slightly older than me, but who have got young kids, and they still want time with their partner. They want to be a good mum or dad or whatever it is to them, but they still want to be a good professional. And the selfish things, as people view them, the personal fitness can often be the first one that gets dropped off the list. So what's your hack? What's your template? How do you do that in terms of sleep? How do you do that in terms of quality time with your family? What's the first thing that it gives, and how do you kind of get it all in, really?
Yeah, I'd say I'm only just starting to come out of that curve now. Like the sleep deprivation for the first 3 years, well, 5 years has been tough. And that is where it can be a game changer for your training. It's very difficult to motivate yourself when you are low on sleep and you're struggling. So I think that's getting easier now. So for anyone that's got a baby, okay, they're going to be right in the thick of it, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And then it's about finding those sweet spots where I always used to nip out after a shift. So at 7 p.m. I'd go straight to the gym and go for a swim or a run, because I knew that would be the time where Charlotte would be putting the girls down to bed. So I knew that if I got home, I would be disturbing them. So I actually got the green light there to go to the gym, which was a nice touch. Or likewise this morning, so up at 6 in the morning to go to the gym and getting back at 7, so I can still get back for the drop off and be there for the kids in the morning for breakfast. So if you time it right, there is opportunity. And now that Alba goes to school next year, and I know that will start to offer even more time because they'll be both at school. Yeah. So during school time, it will get even better. But there's definitely that challenge in the first few years where they're young, definitely.
What do you think's the minimum sleep for you? How do you guard your sleep? Are you an 8-hour guy?
Yeah, I like my set. I like to try and get 7-8 hours, definitely.
But that's got to come at a sacrifice of time together in the evenings as well, because I know partners that just stay up until 11, half 11, just because they want to spend time together, which I get, but often you just find yourself sat in front of the TV watching crap. Are you guys, do you kind of discipline on that aspect? How do you manage that? Because me and my partner were one of those, no TVs upstairs, no no phones in the bedroom, and people are like, oh, bore off, Pete, with your biohack bullshit. You know, you don't really do any of that bollocks or whatever it might be. But I have found the sleep hygiene has been a real secret superpower, because I used to not value it at all. Like, sleep is a cousin of death, and just took stimulants to override the issues of tiredness, and that's not sustainable.
No, and we've spoke about this before, but I'm not a supplement sort of person. I don't really go for any of the sort of.
Do you think it's all bullshit? Do you think you can just get what you need from food, or?
Yeah, I personally think you can get it through. I know it gives you a marginal gain to give you a bit, maybe a bigger lift, but to be honest, I mean, some of the guys I've followed on different audiobooks, a lot of them train at their 90, 95% anyway. They don't often go to 100%. So if you're consistent with your training and you're regularly getting to your 85, 90, 95% anyway, then I think that's good enough for what we're doing. And it minimises injury, and it minimises the need for all the stuff where you can just have a normal diet anyway. Yeah, I've always been 7 hours. We've not got a TV in the bedroom. We're pretty good. I think the kids especially have always knocked it out of us. So by 9:30, I mean, we're zonked anyway. We're falling asleep on the sofa. So we've always found that easy. And the girls have always been early starters. So it's they're just our routine. Really.
Mate, it's a hell of a discipline for you guys to get into. Do you do sauna? Do you do ice bath? Do you do, because there's loads of research out there about heat exposure, and I wonder how much of this benefits first responders and the stuff that we do. I know it's a very small percentage of the job when we're going into incidents where this stuff's relevant, but even just wearing the kit on a day-to-day basis. But again, for the rehab benefits, you know, when I snapped my knee last year, I had to take a load of time out from the ice baths and saunas because I just had a big gash in the middle of my freaking knee, so I couldn't go into that stuff. And I did feel an inflammation and like my body felt swollen and inflamed. Now, obviously it would because it was injured, but I hadn't spent that much time away from different hot cold therapies in ages. I know you did a lot of open water swimming for the triathlon stuff. Do you think there's anything in that? Do you use any of it? It can be a ball ache to get access to this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? So I obviously had to ramp up my swimming last year, and if I went for a long swim in the swimming pool after shift, I would, because of the chlorine, my stomach would feel off. I didn't feel great for having. But if you go in open water swim and it's a lot colder, the water's more natural, there's no chemicals in it, I used to feel great. And that cold water, like you say, is. I mean, we started a couple of years ago. We went in March, and it was like 6 degrees, and we were in there for like 10 minutes max.
Yes,
it was. Oh my god, it was insane. But then I can't say anything because
I'm it. I always think your body's a natural drug factory, but you have to press these certain buttons to release the drugs. So when I go into an ice bath, all of that adrenaline and cortisol and norepinephrine and all these natural drugs just get pumped into my veins when you place yourself in those environments. And it's the same with the sauna as well. But I know these things are tough for some people to access. And even it's just a ball ache getting there. Do you still do the swimming now, even though you're not doing the training for the triathlon?
Yeah, occasionally go for a swim. I'll be honest, I'm not doing as much. But I'll certainly do the open water next year when we start getting back into it. And yoga for me, I don't do too much of the saunas, but yoga's a weekly regular for me. So I get them, like you're saying about the chemicals. Sometimes you just need to get out. Like, you know, like especially there's days where you're feeling a bit, right, I'm computer bound, or I feel like I've been in the fire engine, stuck in traffic, I've been in the desk. So although we're fit, you'd expect firefighters to be fit. There is a lot of days where actually you can feel like you've not been able to open up enough. Yeah. So I love doing a weekly yoga, and that's a game changer for me as well, for just not only stretching out but also.
Do you do that as a class, or do you just YouTube 10-minute thing?
Yeah, I'll do a class, but if I can't get to that class, then I'll just get some in wherever I can, basically.
I find stuff like that is look for the minimum viable product. I mean, cold stuff is like cold shower, you know, open water swimming, or if you could just swim in general and then build yourself up to open water swimming. Mobility, stretching, and yoga and stuff. When people say, the classes don't start till 7 and I need to be back by then, just pull up a 15-minute YouTube video. There's a million free ones out there. It's fantastic. Just get on the lounge floor in your pants. No one can see you. And just do it, you know? And that's the minimum viable product.
For yoga, the biggest thing for me is the injury prevention side of it is if you if you feel tight and you all feel clogged up and your joints feel jammed, and then you go into a session the following morning feeling like, right, I'm going to go and lift heavy and I'm going to be explosive, you're just asking for trouble. So I think like this morning I lifted heavy, but yesterday I went yoga and I just felt ready this morning, whereas it's the worst feeling ever going into a session where you're like, I don't feel ready for this. And yeah, I think yoga just gives
Mate,
you
they're always the ones I've injured stuff. So, I've done discs in my back when I tore my pec off, when I issued my rotator cuff from my left shoulder. It's always been usually a colder time of the year. So, we're in January when this comes out, and we're in sort of end of November when it's recording. I think it was first proper cold day today, wasn't it? It was about -3. It was about 3 degrees, I think, outside. We had the first frost over here. And you've got to calibrate your training. For me, you can't just be going balls to the wall when you're cold in the morning, you haven't stretched, you haven't slept well. It's not an optimum environment for you to be seeking the 95% plus lifts, pushes, whatever it might be that's on that training program. So, be open to being flexible. It's good to be accountable and stick to a program, but also, especially as first responders, where if you've had a busy night shift or something like that, be kind to yourself. Adapt. I get we can just Goggins it, but actually, have you fucking seen the guy? He's fucked. He's just had another knee surgery where he's had everything drained and replaced again. I don't think we need to get anywhere near that, and that would not be sustainable for people that are going to have to work in a career until they're 60.
No, and that's why I like the mix. So I've always been, say, triathlon stuff. I like the fact that going for a swim after a 12-hour shift, that helps to unwind. Yoga helps you stretch out and prepare for your next session. So you've definitely got to, as part of your training plan for the Firefighter challenges, you've got to plan in where you do a skill session, where you do a lifting session, where you do some, say, explosive rowing or some sprint work, where you can't sprint every day. You've got to get that right balance of making sure that your body is ready for everything. So it's making sure that you're always ready and making sure you're ready for work at the end of the day. What you can't do is turn up at 7 o'clock on drill line and go, yeah, I'm ready to work, when you full well know that you've got the worst DOMs ever, or like your shoulders are in bits. You've still got to turn up to work and be reasonable. So that's where I'd like us to push the health and fitness, is that we're not just trying to lift the heaviest stuff we can. We're getting that right balance of what we do.
100%, mate. I wanted to, there's something we've been playing about with a little bit on the podcast, because through January, we've got a whole host of health, well-being, fitness aspects, because people will have a lot of goals these years. And one of the goals I'd love to encourage people to consider is taking part in one of their first Firefighter challenges. I'm very confident that we will not struggle with registration, and I don't say that egotistically, but nonetheless, it's always nice to see new people come to these events. Not just the same old faces, although the same old faces are always welcome because it helps with the competitive aspects, and it's always fun to see everyone every year. But I wanted to kind of force you into a corner for training and kind of try and be playful with this a little bit. So if you had only 10 exercises that you were allowed to use to train for the BFC, you're only allowed 10 things, and we can be flexible in how we maybe categorize them, but what would be your top 10 kind of non-negotiables if you were only allowed to do these things? Only for the next 7 or 8 months, because it's the end of July when the comp is. You're only allowed to do 10 things at all. What would they be?
Well, I know, speak from some experience, but I also speak to the best guys in like Europe and around the world as well, and see what they do. And a lot of the top guys do talk about getting those big lifts, getting the weights training in through the winter, especially when you can't get outside as much anyway. So getting some of those compound lifts in. So just making sure you've got that base strength, squat, deadlift, the key.
You've only got 10, remember. So what compounds do you want in there? This has got to cover all the training.
We've got to have a front squat and a deadlift in then. Right, there's definitely 2.
All right, there's 2. So we're going front squat and deadlift.
Yeah, they've got to be in there.
What sort of deadlift? Are you a sumo? Are you what's your standard deadlift? What are you having?
Just a standard deadlift.
Standard deadlift, okay.
Then you've got to progress.
Barbell or dumbbell? Sorry.
Let's see what we've got left at the end. You've got to get yourself in there, and some rowing sprints as well. I know there's a number of people around the world that talk about rowing sprints being one of the best crossovers for these events.
What's the max you think for a row sprint? Because I do 500 metre splits sometimes, but 500 metre sometimes takes a little bit long. It could take up to a minute sometimes, depending on how I feel. What's a row sprint for you?
If you're trying to sort of imitate the BFC, you're talking 1,000 metres, but if you're doing sprints, you probably need to do repeats. So 500 is probably about your max. So 300s or 500s are probably about best. And if you're doing 500, you only need to do about 4 sprints and you'll be on your back.
What's your sort of rest times for these?
Like 5 minutes. You need some decent recovery to go flat out. Yeah,
5-minute rest in between. I have a 5-minute timer, and I tend to let it run for 2 minutes, by which time I'll have finished whatever it is I'm doing, and then the rest period is 3 minutes. But I can only usually do 4 or 5 rounds of that, and then I really start to flag and drop off. I think I'm built for rowing. I've got some good long levers, but it's just a lot of body to fuel with oxygen. Sometimes I struggle with that aspect. So we've got row sprints, 500 metres or 1,000 metres. That's 3 gone.
Okay, well, you've got to get stairs. I'm a big stair runner, so through the winter I'm just starting about setting off with my stair running. So stair running's got to be in there. And again, short and sweet. You only need 5 to 10 floors of stairs. Get used to running up, get used to running down.
Okay, so minimum 5 floors if you can access it.
If you've ever seen Robbie Budge's feet when he comes downstairs, he's one to watch because that's incredible.
Downstairs, and then the bruises he gets on his forearms because he has that fast spin where he keeps the momentum as well. That's a trick in itself.
Yeah, stairs got to be in there. Well,
we're at 4 there.
Prepared a little bit more for this night. I mean, you've got to get the hammer technique in and the hauling technique. So they're probably 2 exercises that are specific to our events.
Would you train them specifically as those exercises, or would you simulate them in a gym?
Yeah, you'll be doing them like we do the skill sessions where you run to the 3rd floor, haul aloft a 15 kilo pack, and then sprint back down again. So you can do it with skills and join it up with other exercises, or you can just do it as a single exercise and just do multiple sets. Likewise, the hammers.
So we've got a 15 kilogram pack for the haul. When people are doing these hammering, just a generic tire, is there a specific weight sledge? Because obviously people will struggle to get hold of because they could just pull a sledge off the truck. But I don't know if you guys suggest a particular weight when using one.
No, so our sledgehammer's only 4 pounds in weight, so they're not very, their blow hammers aren't very heavy.
Okay.
So it's, whatever sledgehammer you can get hold of, then hit a tyre, run over to it, hit the tyre 15 times, and then put the hammer down and run on. Do repeats of those. Likewise, depending on the weight of the hammer, the tyre, that could be your opportunity to do the drags as well. So that's probably the other exercise to nail in, is that where we see people struggle at the BFC is the first time they pick up that dummy after doing all those other exercises, you see their face and they are like, whoa, it's a heavy dummy. So get used to dragging tyres, get used to dragging weight, pick people up, get a pair of old boots, pick your mate up, pick your oppo up. That's probably a best tip that I can give you for dragging as well.
So I'll let tyre drags and people drags, we'll throw that in as one.
Yeah.
Specific to the tyre drags, have you seen any good setups with how people simulate that? Because depending on where you put the attachment on your body, because if you just hold a rope in your hands in front of you, I don't think that's as good. I have seen a good few setups with cut hose, but have you got any preferences, any suggestions? Because if you haven't got an oppo with you, if you haven't got your mate, your buddy that you're training with.
We've got the one at Easton, we've got just a seat belt going through the tyre, so it's very, very short, but you pick it up like you would like a suitcase, something like a deadlift grip almost, and it therefore keeps, when you pick the tyre.
So you do grip it in your hands, you don't put it on your forearms, because with the casualty drag, obviously it's a quick lift into forearm carry. Really, there's no real. Or do you interlink your fingers? Because I don't think I ever interlink my fingers. I just kind of hold it under the shoulders.
Yeah, I think I try to link my hands, but yeah,
Okay.
it's the weight in the tyre and the technique in the tyre is more about just draining your legs out. It's not necessarily so much in your grip. It's more about getting that weight into your hamstrings and your quads, because that's where you feel the burn.
You suggest a minimum of a HGV tyre, because I think the car tyres you just fall over. There's no point in that.
Heavier the better. I know we always say it, but train train heavy and then race easy. So
steady, because I've got a 320 kilo tyre. I can't drag that anywhere. I can barely flip the damn thing.
No, I think I'm trying to think.
Anyway,
it's about 80 kilos, but obviously you get the friction as well. So yeah, if you've got something that weighs something similar to them, the dummies are 70 kilos, and if it's wet, then it's obviously going to be a bit more. So anything that's between 70 and probably 90 kilos is your sweet spot.
You've got 3 left. So just to recap, we've got front squat, standard grip deadlift, we've got some row sprints, we've got stair running, hammer sledge with 4 pounds sledge, if not something around that weight, haul in, and then the tyre or people drags. You've got 3 left.
Right, you've got to put in a hose makeup. This one's for Dave Budge and Ollie Mayo. They'll love this one. Manchester was my best for this. I've never seen so many people. I think it's because the hose got a little bit wet, but we saw some spaghetti made up.
Some calamities on there, bless them.
And under the pressure, and that is, you just got to do hose repeats. So one of my favourite drills is making up a length of hose, running it out, doing that 3 times for time. So if you can get used to that.
So just again for people that might be using different ones across the world. So in the UK, it's a Duraline 64mm with instantaneous couplings that you use on the comp, isn't it?
64 and 70mm. I think our competition one is 70. I know we use 64 in last year, but I think the comp is 70. And a lot of services have 70 as well. So yeah, whether it's 64 or 70, it's run it out, make it up, and do that 3 times per time. That's quite a good drill. Beautiful.
2 more. This is where you can get particular. This is where you can get... Because there's not a lot of standard gym work there, which there doesn't need to be, of course. A lot of this actually makes it more accessible to people, perhaps. But we've got 2 more.
I'd say as much as
I'm
I
just
hate
trying to
them,
think.
burpees. I think burpees is... I reckon burpees as part of CrossFit is one of the drainers, and you need something in that workout that is a real drainer, and I think burpees are a good one to get that all over.
Well, if you look internationally at the VO2 max tests, I think they said it was between burpees and what's the flings, the bikes, air bikes. It was air bike and burpees were the 2 most taxing in terms of VO2 capabilities, exercises that people could do in a gym, more so than swimming, more so than rowing. There was some, I forget what was 3rd and 4th, but they were the top 2. It was, on the assault bikes and burpees, just for a full body tax.
I think the burpee side of it also kicks in with probably the last exercise I'll chuck in, which is just, can we sneak in plyometrics so vaguely? I know that...
You're going to have to expand for people that don't know what plyometrics is.
Okay, we'll do split jump squats. So if you're jumping from one leg to the other, that is what will help you speed up your stair work. So I think plyometrics is one that I know a few people do rave about. That's probably a decent one to get in there.
For anybody that's not sure about them, if you go over and check out Dave Budge, you see him, he's had a lot of hamstring issues, and he does quite a bit of plyometric work you see doing in his training. Some of it for rehab, prehab, but when you're talking about them split jump, side squat and stuff like that, he does a lot of plyometrics training and films it for theoretically everybody else, but I think he just enjoys it as well himself.
Well, he's quick up the tower, and I think that's the difference where you see people doing strength work during the winter, and then going into the spring they start doing speed and plyometrics, and that's where you see people getting up and down the tower faster and faster. So it's definitely got a good crossover. So you've got to have that right balance in there.
There's a great example of an older athlete as well, because he's in his 40s now, I think. Is he?
I think him and Budge do a over 40s tandem, don't they? Yeah, so he must be.
Yeah, so a great example of someone that has really trained smart as well as hard for a very long time, and he's still in fantastic condition. So we've got the 10. So we have front squat, standard deadlifts, row sprints, stair running, hammer, haul, tire drags, hose makeups, burpees, and some plyometric training. So you could block them into 2s and 3s. So depending on your environment, depending if you're at station, if you're off work at a gym, there really is a great little combination for people to be able to put some stuff together there.
Yeah, I think that's going to get them prepared for the BFC as well.
And because you kind of said earlier around the fact that predominantly supplements are BS for you, you're not seeing any tremendous benefits in them, and most of it you get from food, I did just want to ask you about what kind of food looks like for you, because certainly in the US for firefighters, this is something they seem to really struggle with. They have an expanding waistline, in my personal humble opinion, when you look at a lot of US firefighters. How do you manage it? And I suppose just kind of your top 10 foods that you have during the week.
Yeah, I'd agree with the expanding waistline. I think that's agreed with me as well of late. So, yeah, whatever comes out of my mouth now, again, everyone's be like, liar.
BS, I've seen him. He's a mess. No.
No,
with all things, if you're living in a utopia, and John, with balancing against family and everything like that, what would you like to be having on the day-to-day? What are your top 10?
So I get all of these in anyway at the moment. It's just when I get down towards competitions, it's about minimising the naughty stuff. But I do on a general basis, most days have vegetables, chicken or salmon in a lot of meals, eggs in the morning. And it's just, I'd say my biggest thing with supplements is the word supplement is there to fill a gap in your diet. So if you're missing out on something, and you might find that some people struggle with iron, so they need iron supplementation. I get that, and you're going to have that. But when it comes to pre-workouts and stuff, I'm not a big fan of those. I know some people that lift heavier, like their creatine and things like that. But again, I tend to just go for doing my workout and then getting home and having a decent meal. The only one I would...
What veg do you go for?
So veg, just pack it out, broccoli, courgettes, carrots, you name it. And then generally like a lunch will be a salad, spinach, tomatoes, peppers.
Sauces, garnishes, olive oil?
Yeah, you've got to make it. And I'm with Charlotte, so she has very much introduced me to spices over my last 10 years. So everything's got a kick, everything's got chili, everything is tasty. So yeah, it's always got a sauce. It's always got.
I found like garlic and cumin and stuff like that, and cayenne pepper. There's quite a lot of research behind them around them being quite good for the joints. I know we give it to horses as well when they're struggling with joint pain. So there's some just natural herbs and spices that I tend to throw on sweet potato and any kind of meat that I'm cooking. I'll always throw a bit of that in.
Yeah, and if you talk about your salmon, mate, get your joints lubricated up, then you can't get much better than omega-3 with salmon. That's definitely the top.
Salmon's just expensive. I find salmon expensive and a bit of a ball ache, but it is nice.
Yeah, it's just I'm a food snob, so
you are a snob, yeah.
You know when you look at things in your life and you're like, well, what do I prioritise? What do I have to spend money on? There's one thing I don't go short on, and that's food. And I will happily go to the shops and never budget on food. I'll eat and buy everything that I can.
Well, I do think that when people are getting Gucci cars and spending money on Netflix and all this other stuff, it's like, look, with these champagne problems we have in the UK, I know we're all struggling financially, but we still have a lot of choice, really.
Oh, 100%. I've got a 7-year-old Transit Connect. I'm not driving around in anything particularly flash. You know, that's just practical for the kids and it's practical for training. So yeah, it's 100%. You just prioritise it at the end of the day, don't you?
Where are you sitting with alcohol and hydration?
Well, alcohol's a big dehydrator, and I know about that. So, yeah, I mean, what a time to ask me that question, just as we're kicking into, like, Christmas season. So, yeah.
Coming into Christmas now. People will hear this in the new year. So do you drink through Christmas and then kick it clean for New Year, or are you just a couple of drinks in the evening kind of guy? How do you... Because I think alcohol is a fascinating social study because it is a drug. And all the science tells you it's bad for you, but it seems to just be so embedded within our culture.
It is, and it's a game changer at the end of the day because if I train early, which I predominantly like to do, if I've had a few drinks the night before, it just makes you sluggish. It makes you, do you know what I mean? It can ruin a session or it can make you avoid a session completely. So that's one of the biggest issues, and that's why whenever I've led up to a large event, whether it be the Half Ironman last year or few years back when I did that white collar boxing, anything that's kind of scares me to compete in, I will predominantly have a good 8 to 12 week absence from alcohol just to get it out of my system and be clean. But no, by and large, it's Christmas. I'm going out on socials. Me and Charlotte like to drink in the evenings, you know. So it's just getting the balance. Like I said, I'll have a few drinks, but then as we start getting nearer to the dates and next year, I'll start weaning off it again and making sure I have a decent prep for the BFC.
Do you think people drink as much these days in general? Like when I speak to new recruits and stuff now, and even people going to uni, I feel like drinking is becoming not as popular. I know it's expensive to people to go out, and obviously the events companies and sort of all the shops and bars and all that sort of stuff suffered through the pandemic. But even just as a general cultural thing, even on stations and stuff, I find not as many people. I mean, the smoking thing has been amazing. I think everyone stopped smoking. I mean, everyone seems to be vaping instead. But I find less people drink now than ever anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think the shuffle round,
especially when we're at work, I barely ever see someone with a can of Foster's on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
So rare.
It's definitely changed. The days are gone of having bars on. Well, I say that there's still stations in the country that have bars on stations. They obviously drink off duty. But it's. I think the shuffle round, trying to keep watches together in the fire service is more difficult these days, and the movements are quite common. So going for those socials isn't as regular. So yeah, it's probably not as big a thing anymore.
Do you guys still eat as a team? Do you think it's important for people to eat as a team, especially with everyone's got their special dietary requirements now, and being arguing about what to have? I don't want us to get to the point where everyone's got a separate lunchbox sitting in different rooms on their phones. That's my fear.
Portion sizes are good on fire station at Easton. We do cook as a group. We have big lunches. We'll eat in the evening sometimes as a group. So yeah, I do believe in that, getting people around the table. And I know people talking, they'll take the piss out of us in the fire service for having a cup of tea and a cup of coffee, but that's where it's important in the fire service, and that's where I always preach about mental health side of things. Is you get around a table and you talk about an incident. You get around a table and okay, you might fly through jokes about that incident, or you might sort of try and laugh a few situations off. But by and large, getting around a table and actually talking through what happened helps you piece to piece and process that incident. So it's very important, and it's very important to see then if someone's normally vocal that's then quiet, or quiet now suddenly a bit agitated and vocal. It's an opportunity to really get sort of together and understand where people are at as well.
I totally agree, mate. I think it's similar to families. As a family, I think we should try and eat together at least 5 or 6 times a week if we can. And same with watches. I think it's important for culture. I think it's important for staying connected, staying calibrated, staying interested, and staying strong as a team. I think it's super important. Absolutely love catching up with you, mate. I'd be remiss if we didn't just point people in the right direction. So we'll put a link for BritishFirefighterChallenge.co.uk in the notes. If people look under this episode, they will see it in the notes. Could you just give people a bit of help understanding the sort of categories, if they are quick to your mind? How many people can enter this year? Obviously, registration opens today, January 1st. When will it close? And kind of just whistle-stop tours through how people can get involved.
Yeah, so this year, slightly different setup. Previously, we had certain age categories on certain days. This year, based on feedback, we want to open it out to anyone to pick which day they want to actually race. So there will be 200 entries available on the Saturday. That will range from 9 till 5. And then in Sunday morning, there'll be another 100 people that can enter as well. That'll be in the morning, and then the relay event is in the afternoon. So it's the same categories we've got. We've got males 18 to 29, 30 to, where we're at then, 30 to 34, 35 to 39, 40 to 44, basically every 5 years up to the age of and beyond retirement. In Manchester, we have more female categories than we've ever had. So I think they were at 18 to 29.
18 to 29, yeah, 30 to 39, and then 40 plus for the females.
So, we've got more female categories this year. We've got the open category as well this year, just to make sure the whole event is inclusive. So if you don't want to be in a male or a female category, then there is an open category for you as well. And like I say, the relay event is on the Sunday as well. So we'll hopefully max that out. We can have about 40 odd teams there as well. So yeah, just the main shout out is that in Manchester, the event sold out in 3 days. So watch this space. How quick can we sell it out? That'd be the challenge for everyone logging on New Year's Day.
We tend to start getting even more complete unknowns rocking up as well on some of these events. Now, we do see some typical names around the top, but we should recognize, we had Jack and Matt Adams on the podcast earlier on in the year. People can go back and have a listen to them if they want some more tips and tricks. Jack was first place again last year, 2023, 2 minutes 14 seconds. Do you think that is beatable on the BFC track? I'm sure you guys have already gone and recce'd Liverpool, so you will have been able to see the layout. Or every layout's a little bit different sometimes, and people always do say, it's not massively different, but you've got to treat the surface and what you're given in each different venue. Do you think 2:14 is beatable?
I think it's beatable. I think the course setup in Liverpool was tight, so we had to compact everything in. In Manchester, in Liverpool, we've got the space. So it's how we lay it out, and every course is very slightly different. So although the template is the same, like I say, venue to venue, we do have to tweak things. So 2:14, beatable, but it'll be a much greater challenge to beat that this year, definitely.
John, always love catching up with you, mate. Love you lots, and I will see you soon.
Cheers, Pete. Really appreciate it.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognise, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents that get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you are in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.